Some men built the sound of reggae. You heard their guitar every single day, but you never knew their name. They played on the biggest records in history. They stood in the same studios as the legends, and then they disappeared. No farewell, no tribute, no headline, just silence. Here's the truth most reggae fans were never told. These 10 guitarists did not just play the music. They were the music, and the world let them vanish. This is their story. Number 10, Rad Bryan. When you need a shoulder to cry. The man in the shadows of the shadows. Picture a Kingston session room in the early 1970s, small, hot, cigarette smoke hanging in the air. The producer has his back to you, talking to the engineer. And in the corner, plugged into a small amp, is a guitarist running through chord patterns so clean, so quiet, that you almost miss him. That is Rad Bryan. He was always there, but he was never seen. There'll be no need of running for cover. Rad Bryan was a session guitarist working deep inside Jamaica's studio system throughout the roots era of the 1970s. His name appears in session credits across some of the most important recordings of that decade. But only if you know where to look. He was not a frontman, he was not a band leader, he was a craftsman. The kind of musician that producers called when they needed someone reliable. You know, someone who could walk into a session cold and deliver exactly what the rhythm needed. The records he played on were heard by millions of people. His name was heard by almost nobody. Here is something that tells you everything about how the session world worked. Many of the records Rad Bryan played on do not carry his name at all. Credit, when it existed, often just said rhythm guitar. No name, no face, just a job description. And somehow even that small detail got lost over time. Rad Bryan faded the way most session musicians fade. The music shifted. Dancehall arrived in the early 1980s and the old studio system broke apart. When things seems to get a little... The session players who had held that system together found themselves without a stage to stand on. He left without fanfare, and reggae history moved on without looking back. But somewhere in those 1970s grooves, his hands are still playing. You have heard him. You just did not know his name until right now. Stay with me, because number 9 was somebody who played for legends on 2 different continents, and nobody talks about him. Number 9, Mikey Chung. The quiet multi-threat that reggae forgot to celebrate. Some musicians can do one thing brilliantly. Mikey Chung could do 4 things brilliantly. He could play guitar, touch a keyboard, arrange a song, and walk into any session and understand exactly what was needed. That kind of talent should make a man famous. In reggae's studio world, it just made him very, very busy. Mikey Chung was a Jamaican musician, part of a generation of players who came up through the Kingston session scene in the late 1960s and hit their stride through the 1970s roots era. He worked across studios, across labels, and across genres within reggae itself, playing on sessions that ranged from gentle lovers rock to hard spiritual roots music. And the artist whose records he contributed to include some of the biggest names in reggae history, but Chung himself was never a name, he was a presence. Heard, never seen, he continued to work in music for years, which is actually part of why his story feels different from some of the men on this list. He did not vanish into poverty or tragedy. He just never got his moment of recognition. Mikey Chung's guitar playing appears on records that are still being reissued and rediscovered today. New reggae fans hear his work every single week. They just hear it under somebody else's name. The reggae industry of the 1970s was not built to make session musicians famous. It was built to make records. Labels kept the spotlight on singers. Producers got some recognition, but the players in the room, they were infrastructure. And infrastructure does not get its name in the program. Mikey Chung deserved more than that, and the fact that his contributions are still buried tells you how deep this problem runs. Number 8 is coming up. This man was so prolific, so in demand that his fingerprints are on more 1970s reggae records than almost anyone alive, yet most people cannot tell you a single thing about him.
All right, C-Trends fam, let's keep it real. We're pouring our hearts into bringing you the best celebrity news and music deep dives. But check it. A massive 98% of you aren't subscribed yet. Subscribing is how you can truly support us, helping us grow and create even better content. If you're vibing with what we do, take a sec to hit that subscribe button. It's free and makes a huge difference. Plus, ring that notification bell so you never miss out. Let's flip that 98% and build this C-Trends family together. Your support is everything.
Number 8, Willie Lindo, the session king nobody crowned. Imagine you are flicking through a stack of 1970s Jamaican vinyl, cover after cover, different singers, different labels, different sounds, but you keep hearing the same guitar, clean, melodic, holding everything together underneath. That is Willie Lindo. He was everywhere, and somehow he ended up nowhere in the history books. Willie Lindo was one of Jamaica's most prolific session guitarists across the 1970s. He had a style that set him apart, smoother and more melodic than many of his peers. Where some session players leaned into the choppy, percussive skank, Lindo brought something more musical, more nuanced. That versatility made him valuable. Producers across Kingston's studio landscape called on him regularly. He played across genres, roots, rocksteady holdovers, or the early Lovers rock sound filtering in from England. He adapted, he delivered, he showed up. And when dancehall came and rewired the whole industry in the early 1980s, Lindo's name quietly dropped from the conversation. Willie Lindo's tone was considered one of the cleanest in the business. More than one producer used his guitar sound as the benchmark when setting up a session. Benchmarks do not get biographies written about them, and so his legacy stayed locked inside the music itself. The shift from roots to dancehall was not gentle, it was a hard break. The musicians who had built the Roots sound found themselves on the wrong side of a cultural wall almost overnight. Willie Lindo did not disappear because he stopped being talented. He disappeared because the industry stopped needing what he offered. That is a quieter kind of tragedy, a taus, but it is still a tragedy.
Baby, baby, don't get it on me.
Number 7 is about a man whose story is tied directly to number 6, and together they form one of reggae's most painful untold chapters. Stay right there. Number 7, Noel Bailey, known to those who knew him as Sowell Radics. Lead guitarist of one of the greatest backing bands reggae ever produced. This is deep roots territory, late 1970s Kingston. The sound system culture is in full force. The Roots Radics are the tightest band in Jamaica. And the music they are making is raw, focused, spiritual, and hard. Noel Bailey's lead guitar on those records does not beg for attention. It earns it. Every note is placed with purpose. Every solo feels like it came from somewhere real. Noel Bailey, known professionally as Sowell Radics, was the lead guitarist of the Roots Radics, the legendary backing band that emerged in the late 1970s and powered reggae through one of its greatest periods. The Radics backed artists like Gregory Isaacs, Bunny Wailer, Horace Andy, and many more. The band became famous. The musicians who made it up far less so. Bailey's lead work was the sharp edge that cut through the rhythm. But when people talked about the records, they talked about the singers, not the guitarist behind them. He died in 1999. He was not old, and the mainstream music world barely noticed. Noel Bailey's nickname, Sowell Radics, tells you how deeply his identity was tied to the band. He was not just a member, he was the spirit of the Radics guitar sound. Producers who booked the Radics were often booking him specifically. They just did not always say so. He died in 1999 without a major tribute. Without a headline in the music press, without the kind of remembrance that his body of work demanded. That silence says everything about how reggae has treated its session players. The sound those men created still fills rooms all over the world. The men themselves were allowed to leave quietly. Noel Bailey deserved better. Full stop. Now we move to number 6, his bandmate, his guitar partner, a man who left this world too early from an illness nobody was talking about. This one is going to hit you hard. Number 6, Bingy Bunny, real name Eric Lamont.
My sweet, sweet young lover, please come on home with me tonight.
The rhythm heartbeat of the Roots Radics. If Noel Bailey was the lead edge of the Roots Radics guitar sound, Bingy Bunny was the foundation. His rhythm playing was the thing that locked everything in place.
'Cause it's the young lover I really wanna be.
Dense, locked, spiritual. You have heard his playing even if you have spent your whole life believing you had not. He is in the grooves of records you love. He is in the feeling those records give you.
Wanna be with you, boy, yeah. Young lover.
Bingy Bunny was the rhythm guitarist for the Roots Radics from their formation in the late 1970s through their most impactful period. Alongside Noel Bailey, he formed one half of a guitar partnership that defined the sound of roots reggae. At the turn of the decade, the Roots Radics were the backing band for reggae royalty. Gregory Isaacs, Bunny Wailer, Dennis Brown, these names you know. The Radics you might know, but Eric Lamont, Bingy Bunny, you probably did not.
You, and I will never turn my back on you.
He died on September 3rd, 1994. He was taken by complications from lupus. He was relatively young. The music world gave him almost nothing in return for what he had given it.
And I will never turn my back on you. 'Cause it's the
Bingy Bunny's rhythm style was so distinctive that producers would specifically request it. There was a locked-in, almost locked-down quality to his playing that gave the Radics their sense of control and weight.
come on with me tonight.
Engineers in the studio used to say that when Bingy sat down and started playing, the whole session found its center. He died before the internet could build a legacy for him, before YouTube channels like this one could tell his story to a new generation.
Come on with me tonight.
Before reggae history had really started to look back at its session players with the respect they deserved. Lupus took him quietly, and the music world let him go quietly too. That should not have happened, and today, right now, we are pushing back against that.
My young lover, come let me turn down the light.
Number 5 is coming. And this man did not just play on famous records, he helped build the very foundation that made famous records possible. His story starts at Jamaica's most important studio, and it ends in silence. Number 5, Hux Brown, Studio One's secret weapon. Studio One, Brentford Road, Kingston, the most important recording studio in reggae history. If you know reggae, really know it, you know what that address means. Coxsone Dodd built something at Studio One that no other producer has ever fully replicated. And the musicians who passed through those walls gave the world a catalog that still sounds alive today. Hux Brown was one of those musicians, and most people, even people who love Studio One deeply, have never once said his name.
No, I wouldn't.
Hux Brown was one of Coxsone Dodd's go-to session guitarists at Studio One through the late 1960s and into the early 1970s. That places him at the absolute center of reggae's formative period, when the music was transitioning from rock steady, finding its own rhythm, defining what it would be.
I just can't believe it so.
He shaped dozens of foundational recordings. His guitar is woven into the fabric of songs that have been covered, sampled, and reissued for 50 years. But the studio system at the time was not built on credit.
But the mother and child reunion.
It was built on output. You played. The record was made. The producer moved on. By the mid-1970s, Brown's name had almost entirely faded from the public record.
So low, such a mysterious way.
Some of the records Hux Brown played on at Studio One were recorded in single sessions, no second takes, no overdubs, no corrections. What you hear is what happened in that room on that night.
Just don't work out that way.
And what happened on those nights was often extraordinary. He played those extraordinary sessions. He just never got the credit to match. Studio One's brilliance was a collective brilliance. Nobody there was meant to be individually famous. The music was the thing. You know, the musicians were the instruments that made the music, the individual people who created them. Hux Brown is a casualty of that system. He gave Studio One some of its most important moments.
Believe it so, though it seems strange to say.
And Studio One gave him anonymity in return. That is not a small injustice. That is the story of reggae music in microcosm.
I know they say let it be.
We are halfway through, and I want to know something from you. Which story has hit you hardest so far? Drop it in the comments. Was it Bingy Bunny, Hux Brown, Noel Bailey? Tell me below and keep watching, because the top 4 are where this story gets. On this strange and mournful day. And this man's story takes us off the island entirely. He was an American, he played for 2 of the biggest names in reggae history, and then he walked away. This one is unlike anything else on this list. Number 4, Donald Kinsey. The American who played reggae at the highest level and then disappeared back to Chicago. Think about what Jamaica's music scene looked like in the mid-1970s. Reggae was exploding outward. It was being heard in London, in America, in Africa. One more time, yeah. Come on and stir it up. The world was waking up to something that had been alive in Kingston for years, and in the middle of all that, one young American from Indiana came to Jamaica, picked up his guitar, and played his way into the inner circle. His name was Donald Kinsey. Darling, stir it up. And what he did next still does not make full sense. Donald Kinsey is the son of Chicago blues legend Big Daddy Kinsey, so music was in his blood from birth. But Donald did not just follow his father into the blues. He crossed genres, crossed cultures, and crossed an ocean. All you got to do, keep me in it. He played guitar on Peter Tosh's landmark debut album, Legalize It, in 1976, one of the most politically charged reggae albums ever made. Then he came back and played on Tosh's follow-up, Equal Rights, in 1977, another masterpiece. He also toured with Bob Marley and the Wailers around 1975. Let that settle in. This man played guitar alongside 2 of the most important figures in reggae history, and he did it back to back. Keep me in it, I will stir it up. Oh, nah. Donald Kinsey's Chicago blues background gave his playing a slightly different quality from Jamaica's native session players. There was a rawness in his tone that Tosh in particular responded to. Keep me in it, I will stir it up. Oh. But some music journalists have suggested that Kinsey's guitar gave Legalize It a slightly rougher edge, something that matched the album's uncompromising message perfectly. Stir it up. Oh, yeah. Earlier in this countdown, I made you a promise. Yeah, I told you that some of these stories go deeper than just music, that some of them touch something darker. This is that moment. Here is the truth about Donald Kinsey's story and about the stories of most of the men on this list. Stir it up. The reggae industry of the 1970s had a credit problem, a serious one. Session musicians, particularly guitar players, were routinely uncredited on the records they played. This was not an accident. It was how the system worked. Producers controlled the sessions, labels controlled the releases, and musicians, especially those who were not stars, had almost no power to demand recognition. In interviews over the years, musicians from this era have spoken about going into sessions with no contract, no royalty arrangement, and no guarantee that their name would appear anywhere on the finished record. And some were paid a flat fee, and sometimes a very small one, and that was the end of their involvement. For Donald Kinsey, who came from outside Jamaica and who eventually returned to America, the result was stark. He played on records that sold hundreds of thousands of copies worldwide. He played alongside artists who became global icons, and when people discuss those records today, his name rarely comes up. What we do know is this: Donald Kinsey went back to America. He formed the Kinsey Report with his family in the 1980s, a blues and soul group that had real success in its own right. He made a good life in music. But the reggae chapter of his story, those incredible pivotal years playing with Tosh and Marley, remained largely unacknowledged. That is not a personal failure. That is a systemic failure. And it affected every single man on this list in different ways. The music was celebrated. The men who made it were not. That is the through line of this entire countdown. And Donald Kinsey's story puts that truth in the sharpest possible focus. Donald Kinsey chose to leave reggae on his own terms, and that choice, ironically, made it easier for the industry to leave him behind. When you are no longer in the room, it is easier to be written out of the story. But the music does not lie. Press play on Legalize It. Press play on Equal Rights. His guitar is right there. It has always been right there. We are in the top 3 now. Number 3 is about a man who helped build an entire studio's sound and watched it become famous without him. His story is about loyalty, rhythm, and loss. Number 3, Tony Chin, the quiet engine of Channel 1.
No money, ain't funny, yeah.
The man who helped power reggae's greatest decade and stepped aside while the glory was handed to others. Channel 1 Studio.
I check. Kind of way.
Maxfield Avenue, Kingston. The mid-1970s. This is where roots reggae got its hardest, most focused sound. Heavy bass, militant drum, guitar cutting through like a blade. The Revolutionaries were the house band at Channel 1, and they were something special.
Uptown and farming downtown.
They were not just backing musicians, they were sound architects. Every session they played on felt deliberate, locked in, purposeful. Tony Chin was the guitarist at the center of that sound.
I'll be uptown and farming.
And if you love roots reggae, if you really love it, his playing has been in your life for 50 years. Tony Chin was a core session guitarist for Channel 1 Studio and a key member of the Revolutionaries throughout the mid to late 1970s. The Revolutionaries were the backing band that helped define the rockers' sound, a harder, more militant evolution of roots reggae that influenced everything that came after it.
Money and funny. Office uptown and farming downtown, can't you?
The artists who recorded at Channel 1 in that period represent a who's who of reggae's golden era. Mighty Diamonds, Horace Andy, Culture, Jacob Miller. These records are not just classics, they are cornerstones. And Tony Chin's guitar is woven through all of them. When Channel 1's commercial dominance faded in the early 1980s and dancehall became the dominant force, Chin's profile dropped sharply. The sound he had helped build was everywhere. His name was almost nowhere. Now, the rocker's rhythm that Tony Chin played on at Channel 1 was so influential that it was studied and replicated by producers across the Caribbean and in England.
Uptown, I check. The dog's dinner.
British reggae labels in the late 1970s were actively trying to recreate that Channel 1 sound. They were trying to recreate what Tony Chin and the Revolutionaries had made, and most of them never knew exactly whose hands they were trying to copy. Channel 1's legacy is well known among reggae historians.
If you think it's joke, I make. Just give uptown a check.
The Revolutionaries are respected among serious roots fans. But Tony Chin, the man inside the band who laid the guitar foundation, has not received the individual recognition that his contribution demands. He is the definition of a man who was essential to everything and credited for nothing. The music he helped create is still alive. His place in the story of that music has been largely silent. That ends today.
No money for you and for me. No money and money, yeah.
Number 2 is unlike anything else in this countdown. It is not just one story. It is a partnership, 2 men, 2 guitars, 1 era, 1 legacy. And both of them left this world too soon. Give me 2 more minutes. You need to hear this. Number 2, I told you about them separately. Now I need to tell you about them together because the full truth about Bingy Bunny and Noel Bailey only makes sense when you see what they built as a pair.
Hey, lonely girl, can you see this?
The late 1970s into the early 1980s, reggae is at a crossroads. The pure spiritual weight of mid-70s roots is evolving. Something tighter. More modern is emerging, and the Roots Radics are right in the middle of that evolution. 2 guitars, 1 rhythm, 1 lead, locked together like 2 halves of something that cannot function without both parts. This is what Bingy Bunny and Noel Bailey were to each other, and to reggae. As individuals, they were gifted. As a unit, they were one of the most effective guitar partnerships in the history of the genre. And the Roots Radics backed artists at the absolute pinnacle of the reggae world. And the guitar sound of those recordings, that specific combination of Bingy's rhythm foundation and Noel's melodic lead, was the thing that made them unmistakable. You hear it on Gregory Isaacs records. You hear it on Bunny Wailer records.
Hey, yeah, lonely girl.
You hear it on Dennis Brown, that locked-in, soulful, deeply roots guitar interplay. That is them. That is what they built together. Bingy Bunny died in 1994. Noel Bailey died in 1999, 5 years apart, both relatively young, both without the recognition they deserved. Producers who worked with the Roots Radics in their prime often said that booking the Radics meant getting a full production philosophy, not just a band. The Radics had opinions. They had instincts. They brought something to a session beyond technical skill.
Can you see this lonely man begging for?
And the guitar dialogue between Bingy and Noel was the clearest expression of that. It was a conversation, every take, every session. 2 gifted men, 2 deaths separated by 5 years, no major tributes, no retrospectives from the mainstream music press, no documentaries. Until now. Reggae owes Bingy Bunny and Noel Bailey a debt, and the least we can do is say their names and tell their story to every person who will listen. And now.
Every time and time you cry.
Number 1, the man who helped invent the rhythm that became reggae. He did not vanish by accident. He was simply allowed to leave by an industry that had already taken everything it needed from him. This is the most important story on this list. Number 1, Lynn Taitt. And I want you to stop whatever you are doing for a moment, because this man did not just play reggae guitar. He helped build the rhythmic foundation that reggae grew from. Mid-1960s, Jamaica is transitioning. Ska, the fast, horn-driven sound of independence, is slowing down. Something new is coming, something more weighted, more deliberate, more adult. It will be called rock steady, and then it will become reggae. Lynn Taitt was inside that transition, not as a witness, as a participant, as a creator. Lynn Taitt was born in Trinidad and moved to Jamaica in the mid-1960s. He became one of the most in-demand session guitarists at Treasure Isle. The label and studio run by Duke Reid, one of the most powerful figures in Jamaican music. His choppy, deliberate, behind-the-beat style was foundational. When musicologists and historians try to explain where the reggae guitar rhythm comes from, that specific way of hitting the chord just slightly after the beat, giving the music its particular feeling of weight and space, they trace it in significant part to Lynn Taitt. He played on some of the most important recordings of the rocksteady era, records that are still in print, records that are still being studied by musicians, and then in the early 1970s, he quietly returned to Trinidad. He died in August 2010. He was 73 years old. And outside of the most dedicated reggae history circles, he died almost without acknowledgement. Lynn Taitt was not originally Jamaican. He came from Trinidad's own vibrant musical culture. That outside perspective, some argue, it is part of what allowed him to hear the rhythmic possibilities in Jamaican music that others might have taken for granted. He came in from outside, he heard something, and he shaped it into something that the whole world eventually heard. There is a pattern to every story on this countdown. The music got famous, the musician did not. But Lynn Taitt's case is the most extreme version of that pattern because his contribution was not just to individual records. His contribution was to the DNA of a genre. When you hear reggae, any reggae from 1967 to right now, and you feel that particular guitar rhythm, that place where the chord lands just behind the beat and opens up a space that the bass can fill and the drum can breathe. You are feeling something that Lynn Taitt helped put there. He returned to Trinidad, he lived his life. While he died, and the music he helped build played on without ever saying his name properly, that is the biggest injustice on this list, and it is the one I most want you to carry with you. When you leave this video, story to every person who will listen. And now, number 1, the man who helped invent the rhythm that became reggae. He did not vanish by accident. He was simply allowed to leave by an industry that had already taken everything it needed from him. This is the most important story on this list.